Right, nutrition and hormones for the 35 plus cycling woman if you are in those perimenopausal years. So generally speaking, I see that happen around the late 30s, early to mid 40s. So if you're having a regular period, even if it's an irregular period, but you're cycling, you're in that 35 plus window, you're very likely in perimenopause. And I've been going back to my roots over the last month or so, really talking about the impact that nutrition has on hormones, really specifically for that perimenopausal woman. So I've got you covered today. We're going to do a really deep dive into everything that you need to know about nutrition, how to nourish your body for your hormones and ultimately for your health as well, because it is so much more than just your hormones, than just your period. This is long-term health that we're after here. So a couple of the things that we're going to dive into today is really looking at the very first hormone that you should be concerned about when we're talking about your health, your hormones, and this is not estrogen or progesterone. We're going to talk about blood sugar and its impact on hormones. I'm going to use a bit of a pizza delivery guy analogy for you today to really help to build that understanding around what blood sugar, what insulin is all about, what impact that has on your hormones, your cells, etc. I'm going to go deep into what and how to eat to support your hormones, your periods, your mood, your weight, your health, ultimately long term as well. We're going to talk about the different nutritional needs throughout your cycle as well, because there are some shifts, there are some very subtle changes that I think are really important to be aware of at different phases of your cycle. And the last thing that I really want to dive into today as well is what to do when you're eating healthy, but you're not seeing results. Because I hear this all the time. I cut dairy, I cut sugar, I cut gluten. It didn't make any difference. So we're really going to dive into what happens when you're eating squeaky clean, but you're not seeing any changes to your health. Okay. If you don't know me, my name is Stephanie Singh. I'm a holistic nutritionist, a certified menstrual health coach. I am the CEO of Balanced Health Holistically and the founder of the Hormone Harmony Method. And I help women to balance their hormones to have better menstrual cycles, better periods, and ultimately support their health long term. So we're going to dive into nutrition today. Like I said, really digging back into my roots as a nutritionist to talk about the role that food, that nutrition has on your hormones, on your health. So to start off, I want to talk about the very first hormone that you need to be concerned about when we're talking about your health, when we're talking about your hormones, your period, your menstrual cycle, your moods, your energy, your weight, all of these things. It's not estrogen, it's not progesterone, it's insulin. Okay. Insulin is a hormone. It sits at the very top of the cascade. Okay. Insulin and cortisol. These are what I call queen bee hormones. So we're going to be talking about insulin today. I will be bringing in cortisol as well, but insulin is where it all starts. So insulin and blood sugar are intricately connected. So before I really dig into how insulin and how blood sugar affect our hormones, I really want to start with, well, what is blood sugar? What is insulin? Because when I did a live stream in my Facebook community and I had women participating with me live, there really wasn't an understanding of, well, what is this blood sugar and insulin? How does this all work? So I really dove into that. And the best way to explain what is happening is, like I said, this pizza delivery guy analogy. So first of all, blood sugar. What is blood sugar? When you eat food, particularly food that contains a carbohydrate, you are introducing sugars into your system that is absorbed into your bloodstream and it becomes blood sugar or glucose. Okay. That blood sugar, when there's a blood sugar spike in your bloodstream from eating carbohydrates, now this can happen in a few different ways. Okay. If you're eating naked carbs, as I like to call them, so you're having a piece of toast, a bagel, a bowl of cereal, some cookies, a pastry, a granola bar, that sort of idea, an apple, a pear, a banana, a mango, those sorts of ideas. When you're having a naked carb, it's going to spike your blood sugar, okay? It can also happen if you are not eating food. okay? If you're intermittent fasting or you're going too long between meals, because that's when cortisol comes in, and cortisol will actually kick up stored blood sugar, which then has the same effect, okay? So we eat the food, it spikes our blood sugar. And when blood sugar enters or when glucose, and it becomes blood sugar, it enters our bloodstream. When that glucose hits our bloodstream, our pancreas produces insulin. And insulin's job is to bring that glucose to our muscle cells where it's used for energy, okay? Now, the problem is what happens far too often is the blood sugar spikes are excessively high. So insulin gets sent out at a very high degree to bring all of that blood sugar to the cells. It brings it into the muscle cells, and the muscle says, well, I don't really need it because I live a very sedentary life. I'm sitting behind a desk, I'm driving in a car, I'm sitting on a couch watching TV. So I just don't really need all of that energy. So thank you very much, but I don't need it. So insulin does what insulin does best. It is also a fat storage hormone, and your fat cells, that adipose tissue, is more than happy to take on all of that excess glucose and store it in your fat cells. And that's where we see a lot of that weight gain happen, okay? Now, the problem happens over the long term when there's these chronic spikes in blood sugar from eating naked carbohydrates, not going or going too long between meals and having these erratic spikes in blood sugar and insulin. What happens is your muscle cells are turning away this insulin, turning away the glucose, and eventually over time they become resistant. So this is the pizza delivery analogy, okay? So the pizza is the glucose, insulin is the pizza delivery guy, okay? So glucose or blood sugar, that pizza, insulin is bringing the pizza to your cells. It's ringing the door. And at first, the cells, they're going to open that door and they're going to say, okay, maybe we'll take a little bit, but thank you very much. That's all we need for today. And with these constant spikes in blood sugar and insulin, that pizza delivery guy, that insulin keeps bringing that glucose, that pizza to the door. Eventually your cells stop responding. They don't listen to that doorbell being rung anymore, and they don't let any more in. And that's when we get into an insulin resistant state. This is not good. This leads us down the road of metabolic syndrome, of diabetes, of cardiovascular disease, and all sorts of other degenerative diseases, long-term cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, both linked with insulin resistance as well. So this is why I say this is not just a period problem. This is not just a menstrual health problem. This is a whole health, long-term health issue that we need to be aware of, okay? So that's how insulin and blood sugar work, okay? Now, it turns out, to bring this back now to hormones, to your menstrual cycle, your period, your moods, your weight, etc., to bring it back there, it turns out that these spikes and crashes in blood sugar and insulin, so when we have blood sugar and insulin dysregulation, it turns out that our ovaries are very susceptible to that. They're also very susceptible to insulin resistance. There's a few things that happen. There's a hormone called luteinizing hormone that is released from the pituitary in the brain to the ovaries. It gets increased. Luteinizing hormone increases, which actually increases our androgen production. So our androgens are things like testosterone. And when we have a rise in testosterone, we're going to see irregular periods. We're going to see hair loss and growth in all of the wrong places. We're going to see irritability, mood swings, aggression even. We'll also potentially see PCOS here as well. Okay. The other thing that happens is ovulation gets inhibited. Okay. And that's going to reduce progesterone because we need to ovulate in order to produce progesterone. And that's going to contribute to estrogen dominance. So the heavy, long, painful periods, the endo flares, the endometriosis flares, adenomyosis, fibroids, cysts, those sorts of things, the breast pain and tenderness, the mood swings, okay? The next thing that's going to happen is an enzyme called aromatase gets upregulated. And what aromatase does is it increases the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. Believe it or not, we actually make estrogen from testosterone. And remember, because luteinizing hormone is increased, causing androgens to be increased, we've got even more testosterone. Now we're increasing the enzyme that's going to convert that testosterone to estrogen. So we end up with even more estrogen and all of those estrogen dominant symptoms. And another thing that happens is another hormone that's made in the pituitary in the brain that talks to the ovaries called follicular stimulating hormone. Well, that hormone gets suppressed, and that leads to less ovulation, which means less progesterone production, and it can contribute to ovarian cysts. Okay. So this is really important. This is where food, where nutrition has such a critical role on our hormones and our health, okay? Insulin is the most common trigger of hormone imbalances, not estrogen, not progesterone, okay? It seems so on the surface because estrogen and progesterone are the hormones that are responsible for our cycle and responsible for giving us the symptoms that we're experiencing. But it's insulin that more often than not is causing all of the havoc with our estrogen and progesterone, okay? Now, remember I said insulin is also a fat storage hormone. When we become insulin resistant, we end up with excess weight. And that also is going to contribute to a hormone imbalance because our adipose tissue, our fat cells, produce estrogen. So then we go down that road of estrogen dominance again, right? Insulin resistance and excess weight also creates hormonal imbalance and further health issues. It creates inflammation, which is going to promote heart disease, diabetes, cancer. It again is going to put us in that excess estrogen state and reduce progesterone. Okay. So controlling insulin is really critical for our hormones, our menstrual cycle, our mood, our weight, and our health long term by really mitigating the opportunity for us to move into some of those chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, cancers, etc. Okay. Now we also have to remember the role that cortisol plays here because insulin will also trigger cortisol, which is our stress hormone, because the body perceives these rises and falls in blood sugar and insulin as a stress. And so cortisol gets released as a result as well. And cortisol is another one of these queen bee hormones, remember, okay? So what happens here is these spikes and crashes in blood sugar cause disruptions to cortisol, and that ultimately tells your body that it is not a safe environment and prevents ovulation. Because at the end of the day, whether we want to or not, the whole purpose of a reproductive system is to reproduce, okay? So when the body perceives that it's not a safe environment, it's going to prevent ovulation from happening. And that's a problem. Ovulation is the main event in your menstrual cycle, not your period. And we should be doing everything in our power in our perimenopausal years to preserve ovulation and progesterone for as long as we possibly can. Because remember, progesterone is a very important hormone, not just for periods and fertility. Okay, it's a very important health hormone. All of the receptors on our body have, or all of the cells in our body rather, have receptors for progesterone. It is calming to the nervous system. It induces our parasympathetic nervous system activity, which is basically, it acts like a chill pill. It calms us down. It prevents anxiety. Okay, it's anti-inflammatory. It nourishes the thyroid and helps it to function effectively. It promotes strong bones. It protects the heart. It boosts energy. It stimulates metabolism and improves moods. It supports sleep. It reduces histamine production. It builds bones and muscles. It reduces cancer risks. It protects against heart disease. Progesterone is such an important hormone for our health. It's not just a period hormone. It's not just a menstrual cycle hormone. We really need to start thinking about progesterone and preserving progesterone for as long as we possibly can in our perimenopausal years to support our health. Okay, and insulin is where it all starts. And the last thing that I'm going to say about this before I dive into how to eat for your hormones is that insulin and cortisol also disrupt your thyroid function. And that's going to contribute to period problems as well as all kinds of other health issues. Okay. All right. Let's talk about how to eat for your hormones. Breakfast literally sets the stage for the entire day. If your breakfast consists of foods that help to produce a steady and slow increase in blood sugar versus these erratic ups and downs, the effects of later meals and snacks that you have will not be as pronounced in terms of those blood sugar ups and downs and cravings. Okay. If you are intermittent fasting, remember I said at the beginning, if you're intermittent fasting, this is not for women 35 plus, by the way. Intermittent fasting is not good when you have hormonal imbalances. Intermittent fasting is going to spike cortisol, which is ultimately going to spike stored blood sugar and lead to this blood sugar and insulin spikes and crashes. Okay. And that's setting you up for inconsistencies in the rest of your meals throughout the day as well. You're going to have a lot of trouble balancing your blood sugar, managing your insulin appropriately if you're not setting the stage right from the get-go at the beginning of the day. So breakfast is absolutely essential. You should be eating breakfast within 1 to 1.5 hours of rising in the morning. And it should consist of foods, and I'll get into this in a little bit. It should consist of foods that are going to help to stabilize and balance out your insulin and blood sugar. Okay. The other thing to support your hormones and how to eat for your hormones is long intervals between meals. So going long amounts of time between eating is actually less effective in keeping your blood sugar levels stable. What I recommend and what I find is most optimal from my clinical expertise working with clients in practice is having breakfast, lunch, a good solid afternoon snack, and dinner for most women, and not going more than 4 to 5 hours. And I've honestly found 4.5 hours at most between meals to be the most effective. Anything more than that, and you start to see cortisol shooting up, which is going to have that effect on blood sugar and insulin. Okay. Now, what to eat for your hormones? Your period may only come once a month, but how you eat throughout the month can and will make an immense difference in how you experience your period and, frankly, your entire menstrual cycle and all of the symptoms that you may be experiencing. What you need to focus on, I am not a macro counter. I am not a calorie counter. I do not recommend that. I do not do that with my clients. But the one macro that I do recommend that you really pay attention to and focus on is protein. It is such an important macronutrient to support not only our blood sugar and insulin, but our health as perimenopausal women. It has a very beneficial effect on blood sugar. It prevents insulin resistance that triggers all of those hormonal imbalances. It is the building block for your organs, your muscles, your hair, your nail. It helps your cells to communicate. It facilitates muscle contraction. It helps with the transmission of nerve signals. It makes up all of your immune molecules. So to have a really robust and strong immune system, you need to be getting sufficient amounts of protein. It builds red blood cells. It helps your hormones and enzymes. It's the building blocks for your hormones and enzymes. It is an essential structural component of all of your hormones, which means you need to be consuming enough protein if you want your hormones to be in good working order. And insufficient protein is going to disrupt your growth hormone, thyroid hormones, and insulin, which is going to drive you toward fat storage, increasing your body fat. It's going to contribute to fatty liver. It's going to contribute to the estrogen dominant situation that's happening. It's going to contribute to those longer term chronic conditions and diseases that we talked about as well. Okay. So protein is really important. You want to strive for at least 90 to 100 grams. I like actually even more than that. And depending on your physical activity, your ideal body weight, you may need more than that as well. Okay. The next macro that we need to think about is fat. Okay. We require dietary fat to function. We have to get rid of this notion that fat makes you fat. It doesn't. It actually supports your menstrual cycle, ovulation, and fertility by providing the building blocks, particularly cholesterol, for our hormones. Cholesterol is not a bad thing. Okay, we actually need cholesterol. It is literally the building block for all of our steroid hormones, our estrogen, our cholesterol, our progesterone, all of our androgens, our DHEA, etc. We have to have cholesterol in order to do that. Okay. And if you're not getting cholesterol in from diet, your liver is then forced to make it, and it's got enough jobs to do. Thank you very much. Okay. Fat is going to support brain health and function. It supports moods and emotions. It's important for the absorption of fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K. And those are essential for your hormones and your health. Eating fat doesn't make you fat. You just need the right types of fat. And the other thing that we need to think about is dietary fat will release a hormone called leptin that helps to tell your brain that you're full, which is going to help to prevent overeating and cravings and weight gain and all of those sorts of things. Okay. And for fat, I recommend 2 to 4. We want 2 to 4 tablespoons of fat per meal. Okay. Good healthy fats. And the last is carbs. What I see far too often are women who are cutting carbs, they're going keto or very low carb diets. These are not sustainable diets for women in their perimenopausal years. Full stop. They might work for a very short period of time, maybe a month to 6 weeks. You may see a drop in your weight. But then you're going to start to notice that the weight creeps back on. You start to have brain fog. You've now got all of these digestive issues that are happening. You're feeling very overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, and you're exhausted all of the time. Your thyroid starts to get affected. So you're constipated, you're cold all of the time. Your hair is starting to thin, all of these sorts of things. Carbs are really important for our thyroid function. They're incredibly important for soothing our stress response. They're absolutely necessary for supporting good microbial health in our gut. So really important for gut health, and they provide a source of energy. Carbs are absolutely critical, but not all carbs are created equal. Okay, we want to be focusing on produce. Produce provide us with fiber, low sugar, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, a great source of carbohydrates. Remember, carbs are not just, rice and pasta and cookies and pastry and pizza and all of that stuff. Carbs come from all of the fruits and vegetables that we eat. Okay, leafy greens are a powerhouse here because they're going to help to remove potentially harmful toxins from the blood thanks to chlorophyll. They're going to help to make new red blood cells. They're going to improve circulation, strengthen the immune system, and reduce inflammation. And they're a great source of nutrients like calcium, magnesium, iron, potassium, fiber that really help to support period problems. So dark leafy greens are an excellent addition. And if you can bring in bitter greens like arugula, mustard greens, dandelion greens, that's going to help to support your liver as well, which is really important for your hormones. Cruciferous veggies, things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, radish, arugula, kale, etc. They have a nutrient called I3C, indole 3-carbinol, which enhances your ability to neutralize carcinogens. So it really helps to protect against cancer, and it promotes healthier estrogen metabolism. Sprouts and microgreens are an excellent produce to add. Starchy veggies. So especially the week before your period, starchy veggies, so things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, squashes, those types of things are really helpful for helping to produce serotonin. And that's a happy neurotransmitter that helps to offset anxiety and all of the tension of PMS. Also, serotonin is really helpful for sleep. So if you're somebody who struggles with insomnia or sleep issues, including starchy veggies with your dinner can really be supportive of sleep that evening. Legumes are an excellent source of long, sustainable energy carbohydrates, fiber, protein, minerals, antioxidant capacity, fruit as well. We want to go low GI fruit. Does that mean that you can't ever have a banana? Of course it doesn't mean that. If you're going to have a banana, just pair it appropriately with a protein or a fat to stabilize your blood sugar. Okay. And then whole grains. Do I believe there's a place at the table for whole grains? Yes. Gluten-free whole grains, and they're making up a small portion of your plate, not the entire plate, the way that it used to when I was a kid. So thinking about whole grains, brown rice, teff, quinoa, buckwheat, millet, those types of things. Great to bring to the table for fiber, for minerals. Some of them contain EFAs as well. And again, we're going to get that sustained high quality energy too. What I recommend is making at least half your plate non-starchy veggies, a quarter to a third of your plate protein, and then a quarter of a starch, whether that's coming from a starchy veggie or a whole grain, and then 2 to 4 tablespoons of fat. Okay, let's quickly talk about different nutritional needs throughout your cycle. During your luteal phase, so this is after ovulation and before your period, you actually require more calories. Okay, progesterone has the effect of boosting metabolism. It has a thermogenic effect. So it means that we're burning more calories in our luteal phase. So we actually require a little bit more. Now, this is only 90 to 250 calories depending on your activity level. So this is not permission to go out and binge and gorge and eat all of the food. We're talking maybe a slightly increased portion size at a meal, or maybe one additional small snack throughout the day at some point. That's what we're talking here. During your luteal phase, so again, that's after ovulation, before your period, you're also more insulin resistant. So this is where we really have to be mindful of keeping our blood sugar absolutely stable. Okay, we're also more parasympathetic during our luteal phase. What does that mean? That means we're more likely to be in that fight or flight mode. So our cortisol is going to be a little bit more erratic. We're going to be more likely to respond in a fight or flight state versus kind of like that relaxed, calm, cool, and collected state. So again, helping to support our blood sugar, to support our cortisol is going to be really important during our luteal phase. During our follicular phase, this is after we have our period and before we ovulate, we actually are more insulin sensitive. So we are actually able to manage blood sugar a little bit better. So if you're going to have those little binge moments, the follicular phase is the time to do it. And we're better able to fast during our follicular phase. Now, that doesn't mean intermittent fasting, okay? What I've seen work in practice is during the follicular phase, 14 hours tends to be about the max. Whereas in our luteal phase, 12 to 13 hours tends to work a little bit better, okay? All right, what do you do when you're eating healthy, but you're not seeing results? I hear this all the time. I eat so healthy, I eat squeaky clean, but I'm still exhausted. I'm still not sleeping well. I'm still having problems with my stubborn weight. I'm still anxious all of the time. My periods are still erratic and all over the place and heavy. And I'm in pain all of the time and all of the things, okay? What happens when you're eating healthy, but you're not seeing results in your health? First of all, really evaluate what healthy eating looks like for you. Okay, are you fasting in the morning? Are you having a light salad with a piece of chicken for lunch? Are you then having a salmon, broccoli, and sweet potato for dinner? That's not healthy. That's not what healthy looks like, okay? Are you getting enough protein? Are you pairing your foods correctly to optimize blood sugar and insulin stability? Are you absorbing nutrients from your food? This really becomes a question of the gut, because if you are not absorbing the nutrients from this healthy diet that you're eating, you could be eating all the healthy foods that you want, but if you're not absorbing those nutrients, your body's not going to benefit from that diet. And this is where the GI map test really comes in handy, because the gut is absolutely critical for our hormones, our mood, our weight, and all of these other symptoms that we're experiencing, okay? And we can help to understand through that GI map why you're not absorbing these nutrients from your healthy diet. Are you putting a strain on your nervous system by undernourishing yourself? I see this a lot. women undernourishing themselves from all of this diet culture in our society that's putting women in a state of constant dieting and restricting and starvation. It's chronic, and it's become such a problem for women in our society, and our metabolisms have been really disrupted as a result. And there's a lot of healing that needs to happen, a lot of building up that needs to happen, not so much a tearing down. There's really a building up and a coaching up of the body that needs to happen. And it ultimately also down regulates, as I said, metabolism. It's going to disrupt hormones, mood, cognitive function, weight, etc. Are you over exercising? The focus should be on weights and walking, not HIIT workouts, not heavy cardio, not going to Orange Theory and busting a gut and sweating profusely all over the place. Don't get me wrong, sweating is great, but you shouldn't be killing yourself in a workout. The focus should be on weights and walking, building up that muscle, and gentle cardio. Is there a level of nervous system dysregulation and adrenal fatigue that is sabotaging your efforts at eating healthy? This is huge. Okay, cortisol affects blood sugar, it affects insulin, it affects insulin sensitivity, it affects ovulation and progesterone. And then we have the period problems, the weight gain, the mood issues, the cognitive function challenges with memory, with brain fog, with concentration. There's inflammation. Do you have an underlying hormonal imbalance that requires a different approach to nourishing your body? Is your liver struggling with an elevated toxic load that is slowing your metabolism and disrupting your hormones? We're living in a toxic soup, and our liver is significantly overburdened, and that is going to have an effect on our metabolism, on our hormones, our mood, our cognitive function, our digestion. Are you getting enough sleep? Sleep is so important to support our hormones, our digestive system, our circadian rhythm, our hormones, our health, our immune system, okay? When you are eating healthy, when you're truly eating healthy and you're not seeing the results that you're looking for, whatever that may be, whether that's weight loss, better moods, more energy, better periods, whatever the case may be, it is time to dig deeper, okay? Nutrition is foundational. Okay, don't get me wrong. We've got to make sure that our queen bee hormones, insulin being the primary one, we've got to make sure that it is in check before we can look at estrogen, before we can look at progesterone, before we can do all of these other things. But it's not the be all and end all. Okay, it doesn't solve for dysbiosis. It doesn't solve for, an overgrowth of bacteria or parasites or yeast or fungus in the digestive system. It doesn't solve for poor detoxification, metabolic pathways. It doesn't solve for burning the candle at both ends. It doesn't solve for a lack of boundaries. It doesn't solve for poor sleep habits. Nutrition doesn't do it all. Okay, it's a heavy lifter. Don't get me wrong, but it is not the be all and end all. Okay. For example, the gut is huge here. If there is dysbiosis, if there is an overgrowth of the wrong types of bacteria, if there is a fungal overgrowth like candida, if there's a parasite, you're going to feel exhausted. Think about all of the work that your body is trying to do to fight off those invaders. Okay, that's a lot of energy that's being consumed. So you're going to feel exhausted. You're going to have a ton of inflammation. So you're going to feel puffy. Your moods are going to be off. You're going to have problems with your periods. You're going to have headaches and migraines, joint pain, thyroid issues. You're going to have trouble sleeping, and nutrition alone is not going to solve for that. So when you're truly eating healthy, but you're not seeing results, it's time to do that deeper dive. I almost always recommend a GI map test first. That is a gut health test, because we really need to see what's going on in the digestive system. Are you absorbing those nutrients? Do you have an overgrowth? Is there inflammation that's stemming from the gut? Is there leaky gut? But it really also depends on the situation. What is the woman really struggling with? What are your goals? What's your family health history? What's the season of life that you're in? What are the things that are really important to you and your health that you want answers about? And then we can determine the best path forward, what testing makes sense, what that strategy would look like for you specifically. Okay. Sum things up really quickly here. It is so important to work with a practitioner who can support you with an appropriate strategy for you, because going in circles, trying to DIY it yourself is not getting you anywhere. It's probably time to get the appropriate testing. To have the support of a practitioner who can guide you appropriately based on your health history, your goals, your personal health struggles, not just your test results, not just the food that is on your plate. This is the approach that my team and I take. Now, what I've done, I have linked for you below a little freebie for you. It is my guide to nutrition hormones for the 35 plus cycling woman, where I've broken all of this down for you. And if you are interested in learning a little bit more about working with me and my team, reach out to me on Instagram, comment below, shoot me an email. I'd love to connect with you to learn more about what your goals are and how we can potentially help. And of course, if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. In the meantime, have a fantastic day and we'll chat soon. Bye for now.